Welcome to this Thursday edition of Tiki and Tierney on WFAN. This is Tiki Barber in alone today. BT is out getting a colonoscopy. We'll talk about that a little bit later because I need to schedule mine and Dove needs to schedule his third one. But looking forward to chatting with all of you about a variety of topics. 877-337-6666. And I have to start with my New York Giants. Obviously, it's what I know best in my life. I spent a decade as a running back for the New York Giants, as you guys know, and had two different coaches over my tenure. One was Jim Fossil. He drafted me out of the University of Virginia. In fact, the draft story, I was on the golf course with my brother, and Pat Hanlon calls me and says, hey, Coach Fossil's going to take you with the next draft pick. And I'm thinking to myself, who the hell is Coach Fossil? I didn't know who he was. Eventually, I figured it out, and I ended up going to New York and meeting Coach Fossil and really enjoyed how he treated me. Because he was fair with me, he was hard on me, but at the end of the day, I could trust him. And most importantly, he could communicate with me. Coach Coughlin was a little bit different when he came in 2004. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but he was a hard ass. And I appreciated that because I needed things I had things I needed to work on, as we all know, with fumbling. And I was able to turn it around because he was so disciplined on the little things. He ultimately became a two-time Super Bowl winning head coach and Hall of Famer, and he was fantastic for how he coached us. But the thing that I appreciated about both of them is that they were very succinct in how they communicated. Coach Fossil was more personable. It felt like, man, I can trust this guy with whatever's going on in my life. Coach Coughlin was, you know what? This is what you need to do in order to play. In fact, Coach Coughlin told me once, if you keep fumbling, you're not going to play. I don't care how good you are. And after he left, what we got in New York was a bunch of non-communicators. Obviously, with Brian Daboll, it doesn't feel like we're going to be that way. But with the last three prior to Daboll, we had head coaches who just weren't able to get the message out the correct way. Now, it didn't feel that way early with Joe Judge. With Joe Judge, it felt like, man, we can rally behind this guy. He's galvanizing you. He's lifting you up, and he's giving that rah-rah speech. But sometimes when you give that rah-rah speech all the time, it loses its effectiveness. I heard something yesterday on social media with Brian Daboll talking to the staff of the New York Giants. It wasn't to the players. It was to the staff of the New York Giants. And he didn't say anything necessarily profound, but the way that he speaks and the way that he dumps in the urgency and what it's going to take to be great, in addition to being personable, really caught me. And I think that's important with today's player. 20 years ago, it was different in how you talked to players. You could tell them, you're not going to play if you don't do X, Y, and Z. And you kind of had to accept that as a player. Nowadays, you got to be a little bit different. Let's listen to Brian Daboll, head coach of the New York Giants, talking to the staff yesterday. And I'll respond to it afterwards.
This is a team effort, right? So a foundational pillar to success is people. And that's what this organization is going to be all about, bringing in the right kind of people to get the right kind of results. And that's it. Let's not make this more difficult than it needs to be. The scouts are going to go out, they're going to work their tails off, they're going to find players, the coaches are going to try to develop the players, the business side is going to do your part, the equipment guys, the trainers, all of us are in this together. Just because you have a title doesn't mean you're entitled, right? Everybody's in this together, and everybody is important. So if somebody finds a cool play in a high school game or a college game, send it over our way, right? And we'll just call it whatever your name is. Open door policy. See me now, call me Dabes, okay? I know I met a lot of you. I look forward to meeting everybody in here. Call me Dabes. I try to be personable. Maybe after a loss, just give me a little bit of space for a few minutes. But we got a lot of work to do. Everybody understand that? We got a lot of work to do. We got to roll up our sleeves, and we got to get after this thing one day at a time. We'll make no promises, no predictions, but we'll get better each day if we do it the right way. All right? And I look forward to getting together with all of you, chatting, learn about your families, tell you about mine. It's a long story. There's a lot of kids, a wife involved. But again, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to John and Joe, and I look forward to getting with you guys and sitting down and developing a relationship with you, because that's important. Because there'll be tough times, right? There're going to be tough times. But what we do in this building is what matters. Championship performance level from everyone in those seats. And if you're a champion in what you do, in your role, we'll be a champion as a team.
It starts from the top down. And look, you can be a nice guy and not be a great head coach. And I can't predict whether or not Brian Daboll is going to be a great head coach. But I do know that the message is right. And when you hear it, the way that he delivers it, you believe it. And that's half the battle when you start as a head coach in New York. And here's the thing. In New York, it's really easy to get caught up in being the head coach of the New York Giants. It feels like it's a task, like it's a job different than any other job in the National Football League because of how the media treats you, how the fans are going to respond to you, how intense the noise gets when you're bad, how loud the adulation is when you're successful. And so being able to stay even-keeled and on the right mindset is something that is so important, but also being authentic. It's the one thing that I believe most in sports, really in life, is to stay authentic to who you are. And for the first time in really 6 chances, it feels like the Giants have that guy. And an interesting thing is that as I was talking to Big Zoo and Doe before the show, it feels like it's been a long time since the Giants and the Jets have had that exact situation, right? Head coaches who have, first of all, competence, but they communicate well. They have an assuredness about what they're trying to do. They're not guessing. They're not trying to be somebody else. They're not trying to put on a facade. They're just trying to be themselves and do it the best of their ability and not worried about the noise that could potentially surround them. I mean, you probably got to go back to Coughlin and Rex Ryan. Now, people have their thoughts about Rex Ryan, but that was over a decade ago. It was a decade ago for both the Giants and the Jets, had coaches who you trusted and believed in, mainly based on how they communicate, but also what their future plan was going to be. I think the Giants have a lot of work in front of them. But the thing that they got right, and we've talked about this already on this show, is that they hired the right coach to get the message out. And now there's the work that needs to be done. And there's a lot of it, including some really tough decisions that Joe Schoen has to make regarding this roster. Don't forget, our friends at Town Fair Tire remind you that at Town Fair Tire, you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. 877-337-6666. Here's what Joe Schoen has to deal with right now. One is Daniel Jones our starting quarterback? Number two, is Saquon Barkley worth being traded, or should we hold on to him for his fifth-year option, his year? Because remember, they can trade him on his fifth-year option, and that entire salary goes with him. So it's immediately $7 million, $7.2, I think, million off of the cap. Then how do you address the offensive line? And before all of that, you got to figure out a way to clear some $40 million of cap space, and that's going to bring in that's going to require some really tough decisions. Here's my thoughts. Daniel Jones is your quarterback for now. Don't even think about going out and trying to trade for whoever it may be. Russell Wilson or maybe Deshaun Watson would be interesting, but there's so much baggage around him right now. And just reading some of the tea leaves around that lawsuit, which a lot of people assume was just a civil suit. There's still a criminal investigation going on. He's just not worth it. Russell Wilson looks like he's going to stay in Seattle. Aaron Rodgers likely is going to get an extension with the Green Bay Packers. I know because of his cap hit, he could be traded, but I think more likely than not, he's going to get an extension and stay in Green Bay, and that creates a unique situation with Jordan Love. And then you get to the draft. What are the Giants going to do once they get to the draft? For a long time, I've thought the Giants need to go get the best impact player there is in the NFL draft, whether that's Kayvon Thibodeau or Aiden Hutchinson, whoever they determine from their scouting and from the combine, which, by the way, happens next week. The combine starts next week in Indianapolis. But so it's who are they thinking about? Who are they targeting? And so I thought, trading, you got 2 picks in the top 10, 5 and 7. go up to number 1 or 2 and get one of these pass rushers. It helps alleviate the cap burden with just one top 10 pick as opposed to 2 top 10 picks. And you're guaranteed to get a guy, or at least you're more likely guaranteed to get a guy who you absolutely want because you're not just waiting who falls to you. And you're going to get an impact player. But as I think about this Giants team, the biggest thing that they need is continuity and depth on the offensive line. And so as much as I would love to go get that kid who's going to be an all-pro pass rusher or, a Hall of Famer coming off the edge who's going to lead the league in sacks, I think the biggest priority for the Giants has to be core. I remember when I first got to the New York Giants, the offensive line was old. And they were good because they took us to a Super Bowl in 2000, but it was old. And as it started to turn itself over to those teams that won those Super Bowls in 07 and 11, so much of it was, who is Richie Soyberg? Or who is this Chris Snead, this kid from Boston College? Oh, he's just dating Coughlin's daughter. That's why they drafted him. Who is Kareem McKenzie? He's cast off from the Jets. Luke Pettigrew. Who are David Deal? Who are all these guys? In fact, Joe Theismann, I remember this on a Monday night game, said the Giants have the worst offensive line in football. And we knew that wasn't the case because of how it was built. But once you get an offensive line that gels, plays well together, it creates so many opportunities for you. Obviously, it was a boon for my career. I've been on record many times, and I'll continue to be on record because of those 5 guys, Sean O'Hara as well in that mix, in front of me. I had the career that I had. Because of those 5 guys who were in front of Eli, they were able to win a championship. And with Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw, he continued to do great things on the ground. Because of those 5 guys up front, the Giants had some sustained success for most of Eli Manning's career. And so as exciting as it sounds to do it the way that other teams have done it and go draft that player who just dominates the stat book and get you the rookie of the year defensively or offensively, the only way to win in the NFL is to get right up front, especially for a team in the NFC East that wants to run the ball. That's why I'm now shifting my thoughts on what the Giants need to do. They need to draft one of these offensive linemen in the top with their 5th pick, whether it's Evan Neal or the kid Cross or whoever is still sitting up there. Iquanu from NC State is the other one. What are in your mind, what do the Giants need to do with their draft picks? I'm saying offensive line, I think, is exciting as it is to go after a defensive player. Offensive line is where you have to start with a team that has talent in the skill position players, but hasn't had enough consistency up front. Let's get some of your calls, 877-337-6666. Let's go to Eddie, who's out in Rockland. Eddie, what's happening?
Hey, Big Teak, I got you alone finally.
Yeah, man. I'm good, man. How are you?
All right, let me get a couple of questions for you. First of all, with the Giants, I had season tickets back when you were playing from 95 to, I think, 02.
Yep.
And I wanted to ask you a question about the 97 playoff game. That was the coldest game I ever went to in my life. And
that was the most miserable game I've played in my life because we should have dominated the Vikings that game.
Was that the coldest game you ever played?
It was cold. No, I think the coldest was the Kansas City game, actually, Eddie. Back in, it was 05, the Kansas City. It was a night game. Remember, I think it was a late afternoon game, but it got dark and cold, but the field was frozen. And I talked to BT. I told BT this story the other day. I wore nubbed cleats or nubbed like turf shoes as opposed to cleats. Everybody else had cleats on, and they wouldn't sink into the turf. We had that field turf at the time because it was frozen. And they were sliding all over the place, whereas I had great traction. That game was probably the coldest one. It wasn't freezing, but it was just windy. You know what I mean? So that was probably the coldest one I played in.
All right. On the Giants draft now, I've been saying this for the last 4 years. You got to trade down. You need 4 guys on the offensive line.
You don't necessarily need 4, Eddie. I don't think you need 4. I think you probably need 2. You're going to get 1 in free agency.
Wait a minute. Hernandez stinks.
Oh, he's gone. He's a free agent. He's not going to be back.
The third round offensive tackle, the second year kid.
Pert.
Matt He's not moving that fast.
Yeah, but he's a depth guy. So let's just flesh this out, right? Left tackle Andrew Thomas. or maybe even Evan Neal, whoever, if they take Evan Neal. I'm saying draft a tackle first. So you get Evan Neal, you choose who plays right or left. Tristan Wirfs from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers proved to us that a right tackle taken high is just as important as a left tackle taken high. It's one of the reasons that Brady was able to win that Super Bowl, because their offensive line was so stout on both edges down there in Tampa, and Tristan Wirfs. So you can take a tackle here, and you got Andrew Thomas or whoever you take. You got a left guard that you're likely is going to be Shane Lemieux. Center, there's also maybe you draft one later or you find one in free agency. Right guard, you pick someone up. You pick someone up on the free agent market, and then right tackle, you're set with the kid you drafted. I think that easily solidifies the offensive line if you do it the right way. I agree with you. You got to go offensive line, but I don't think you need to move back and get rid of everything that you already have started to establish. The Giants aren't in as bad shape as it seems like they are in. Let's get Richie, who's out in Queens. What's up, Richie?
Hey, Tiki, always good talking to you. Totally agree. Thomas is a stud. I think he's going to be fine. You're going to get Gates back at center.
Yes.
I think Lemieux. I think you get.
I don't know about Gates. That's the only problem with Gates. I'm not sure when he's going to be ready to play. He might. He's probably going to start on the PUP list, and you never want to go into a season with question marks at one of the most important positions, which is your offensive line field. You know what I mean? So I think they're going to have to make a move at center. But I hear you in premise. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I like the offensive linemen that are up there, and they're looking at a cornerback at number 9 or 10. But your point, Teak, about listening to him give his speech is you got to be uplifted at this point. I mean, you're looking for any positives. It's been so down for the last 8 years.
That's right.
And and he's got a track record in Buffalo, obviously. And is it going to turn around? It's going to be better than 4 wins or 5 wins, I believe.
Well, I mean, they just need to half of it is being healthy, Richie. He's got to be healthy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were close in some games early, then they got hurt and beat up, and before you knew it, it was a terrible. It was a show. It was ugly. Part of it was injuries. Part of it was probably them quitting on Joe Judge. It was just a lot of things that went wrong at all the same times for the New York Giants. And again, so. They were bad. I just don't think they're that far away from being okay again, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Taking the other thing, too, with this contract coming up, and do you pay him $21 million, Jones? And I agree that most first-round picks that don't get that, the teams do not regret it, because in 4 years you have an idea what he is.
Yeah,
and most guys have never gotten a long-term contract after not being picked up on their 4th year. So
you're right.
This is a big year for both of them, and think about last year. We were supposedly having 2 great corners, 2 very good corners, in Jackson and Bradbury.
Yep.
And now they're looking to draft one. So things change so dramatically year to year.
Yeah, no, they really do.
I like what I'm hearing from.
I do too. I do as well. Appreciate your call, Richie. Thank you, man. Likewise, good chat with you as well. 877-337-6666. I think the Giants are in good spot. The Jets are in good spots as well. They have and again, there's so many moves that are going to be needed to happen in free agency and the NFL draft. But at the end of the day, you have 2 head coaches in New York who are great communicators. And I know that it sounds fluffy, but if you don't have to worry about the press conference, if you don't have to worry about, man, did he just say what I think he said? He's BSing us, right? So how many times have we heard that over the last few years with both the Giants and the Jets? This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I think for the first time in a while, the Giants and the Jets don't have that problem with their head coach, and Brian Daboll has got me excited to be a New York Giants fan. 877-337-6666. Tiki and Tierney on the Fan.